Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind here on WPRI.com. In lieu of new shows at 7:30 on MyRI TV and Fox Providence at midnight, back as soon as we can be. In the meantime, things today that were really interesting. The governor, in what was the worst kept secret, I think, here in Rhode Island, announced formally that schools will continue to distance learn through the rest of the school schedule for this year, meaning the buildings will not be open to learning. And that is pretty devastating for a lot of folks, the kids, the teachers, and parents who are struggling with the logistics of trying to keep their kids educated while either working from home or working away from home. The good news on this is that Rhode Island seems to have stepped up its ability to perform in this category. And to the governor's credit, she wanted to keep it moving. She wanted to keep the pedal down and keep learning. And the education commissioner, Angelica Infante Green, said today that they've learned a lot of things that will actually carry forward when we actually go back to schools in the buildings, hopefully in September, maybe not, who knows. But the distance learning is helping with some special needs children and a whole bunch of things that may be employed when we get back to school on a regular basis. In the meantime, Rhode Island seems to have produced a big number, and that is 90% attendance compliance online on the Chromebook across the board, which is a very big number, don't you think? I don't know what that translates to in terms of actual learning, but on the radio today on WPRO, weekdays 3 to 6, I got a lot of anecdotal reports that indicate that there's some constructive work being done here in Rhode Island. It's a full court press, although it was inconsistent from one district to the next, which I guess is to be expected and which needs to be examined by the commissioner and her team at RIDE, no doubt. In the meantime, in Massachusetts, they've had a completely different take on this. When this all happened in mid-March, they decided that they were just going to reinforce what had been taught already from district to district, and in fact, give the local control to the districts to determine how they wanted to proceed here. Massachusetts, which has led the league in an education comeback by and far in this country, kind of took the pedal off the metal on this situation. And I'm not sure that's going to hurt them in the long run, because what they're saying is they want the kids to be mentally okay when they get back to normal school, and they'll figure out a way to provide the academic curriculum catch-up. So it's two different philosophies. I mean, you could fantasize, if you're a Rhode Islander, that we'd make a big comeback here, make a little bit of a downstretch climb on Massachusetts while we're kind of in the pit area here. You know what I'm saying? Kind of an Indy 500 thing. We catch up while we're social distance learning. Maybe a fantasy, but interesting that the two states have two different philosophies, and good for Rhode Island for at least posting numbers of attendance. Now, we'll see what that means in terms of real test scores when we get back to that ball game. In the meantime, the governor followed up on her messy message on 60-plus workers yesterday by more or less saying, I'm sorry for confusing everybody. I was just saying that you're going to have to be more careful. No regulations or discrimination opportunities here. She even got flack from her brother, who's a 60-plus physician, saying, hey, I haven't had a week off in a long time, and, what are you talking about? So the governor had a bad day yesterday on that. To her credit, I think she indicated that she understood that she had a bad day, and we'll just chalk it up to that. So forget what she said about being over 60 and working until there's more indication as what her real stream of conscience was on that. Speaking of governor, we're so executive branch centric now these days, aren't we? A poll from the Hassenfeld Leadership Institute at Bryant University, done through Fleming Associates, finds some pretty good numbers for Governor Raimondo here in Rhode Island. Some 80% of respondents feel like she's doing either a good or excellent job in maintaining the coronavirus strategies here. And some 84% trust the information coming from the administration on the data, the numbers, and everything else that pertains to the virus. Governors start with a higher foundation. because people tend to trust their local reps and senators, and in times of crisis, they're governors. But 80% is a good number. The governor, though, I think is a little bit cocky in the way that she's approaching this whole dealing with the media, and we're not going to let up on it. She is refusing to allow for the kind of interaction that needs to test her on her decisions and show the general public that dynamic of dialogue. And she doesn't seem to be moving. With an 80% number that says you're doing a good job there, Gov, she may not. That should not preclude members of the journalistic community and media management community from putting the pressure on her to say, you know what, enough is enough. If you want to keep broadcasting these briefings, you need to include the journalists for questions and follow-ups. Let us not lay down that which is our best asset, and that is to challenge authority. Okay, I'm not going to give up on that. I am not going to give up on that. Let me peek, though, on the other part of the poll. Guess what? The President of the United States, according to Rhode Islanders, isn't faring as well as the governor. 35% trust in the information that he offers, and 36% approval of the job he's doing with the virus. That number's bad. And as I said before, this president's done just about everything he can to deserve it. I wish it was funny. It's not. Moving around and trying to figure out where this president is from one day to the next is literally impossible. Just take Georgia for an example. Yesterday he suggested that the governor of Georgia wasn't doing the right thing in opening up tattoo parlors and bars and that kind of stuff any minute now. Only that day he had called the governor and said, I approve of your plan. Only days before, he had said, it's all up to the governors. Only a week before, he said, it's all in here, and I'm going to turn on the light switch for the country. You wonder why people in Rhode Island and beyond in this country have no faith in what he's saying? It's because you can't figure out what he's saying from one day to the next. Models. The models are showing that places like Georgia and Rhode Island and others need to have patience. Nobody wants this. I hate this. You hate this. But it looks like if we open too early, we are going to create a Pandora's box, no matter what the ultraviolet rays of the sun and warmer weather might do to mitigate this virus. It is seemingly way too early to get ahead of this thing. And the scientists are getting more and more vocal about such. We'll see how that impacts the White House and their approach, and the various governors who can't wait to open up stores and even restaurants at this point. And finally, on our thoughts for the day, it seems like information coming out of New York and beyond may indicate that this virus has been around longer than we think and is more widespread than we hoped. Although it could be good news that some 14% of New Yorkers may have an antibody for the virus. A test of 3,000 people indicated that that was the number across the Democratic spectrum, by the way, which leaves a lot of us wondering. I thought this thing arrived in early mid-March around here. Any chance it was here in the winter? Any chance that temp and that bad bug that some of us had in the winter might have been it, including me? I don't know. But it does show you that if the numbers are more widespread, that there's a much lower fatality rate. It doesn't take away from the sadness for all the lives we lost and the demographic from which we lose most of those lives, meaning the seniors. But it shows you that this is still a fluid investigation. And it's going to take weeks and weeks and months, which requires us to be perseverant, patient, and courageous. Wash your hands, try not to touch your face, smile, and keep praying. Good night.